laws. It is very hard not to take this personally, and I do. This proposed ordinance is not appropriate for a village with lots of such different sizes and shapes, or for a village that does not cull deer. I don't want to kill your deer. Please don't kill my plants. Thank you.
My name's Irene Gagerman, Gagerman, and I live at 3000 Orange Brace Road, and I'm also known in Riverwoods as the Cajun Queen. Because 6 years ago, when I started planting and reforesting my garden, I wanted to put up a fence. I saw what fences did for my neighbors who were reforesting, giving them the ability to grow and regenerate the woodlands. When I bought my property, I had no idea I didn't have woodlands. I saw these beautiful trees and I said, you know, this is great. I realized through a learning experience that all I had was the trees. But those trees are starting to come down. You know, this year we had to take down 2 because of Dutch elm. Last year was 4, including 1 5-foot diameter cottonwood. Mixed emotions. You know, the 2 years before that, there was a number of other trees. Meanwhile, there are no new ones coming up. You know, my saplings, I caged. That's what I decided to do. Why? Because my husband said, please don't fence. I really don't like fences. My neighbors who were sitting here patiently for a long time also asked me not to fence. So I went the other route. I went the caging route. Okay. And when I first planted, I caged only that tree, and I caged it 3 feet away from the trunk. And gee, that worked nicely, except that 6 years later, those trees have grown and the branches are sticking out, and that's just the trees. The ordinance doesn't provide at all for protecting my shrubs, of which I have 110. That's what I planted in the 6 years. 18 different species of shrubs, and it doesn't protect my perennials, okay, which I have planted hundreds of them, including 1,400 seeds that I'm putting in the ground in a couple weeks, and there won't be any place to put those plants if I have to take a cage and reduce it to 2 feet away from the trunk, okay? I started to expand my cages, and now I have trillium. I have tons, I'm giving away trillium. I'm sharing it. I'm sharing it with Sheila and Mike Clayton and Greg and Lori and my friend from Warrenville, because I have trillium. And I didn't plant those trillium. You know, where did they come from? They came from the fact that I've removed the invasives and I've protected them. The deer can't eat them down to the ground. You know, I have oak saplings coming up, but in my cages, they're up to 3 feet tall. Outside of the cages, they never get taller than 6 to 8 inches because the deer eat them down. I mean, look, I love the deer. When I first moved to Riverwoods, I don't know if I was breaking an ordinance or not, but I'll tell you it anyway. I used to feed the deer. I fed the deer. I thought it was gorgeous. I mean, I thought it was wonderful. The deer would come and I'd feed them, and my grandkids would come and I'd say, look at the deer, aren't they gorgeous? Then I realized they were eating all my plants because I love the plants too. I'm like Margie. I love the deer and I love, So the cages allow that to happen. The deer can get through my yard. It's not an obstacle, and it's allowing me. You should see my yard. I invite the whole entire board next spring. Come to my yard. Compare my yard to my neighbor's, okay? My darling neighbor Janet has stuff growing. She plants grasses and ferns because the deer don't eat them, but I want more than grasses and ferns. Grasses and ferns are not going to give habitat and food to all the wildlife, to all the butterflies and insects and all the other stuff that feed the birds, that feed the mammals, that feed the, you know what I'm talking about, on and on and on. The biodiversity is important. So, I don't think that the caging should even be in the ordinance. It doesn't do anything, it doesn't go against any of those 6 objectives that you're trying to come up with here. I don't understand that. I mean, Mr. Kaplan, in meetings you have said to me, everybody should do what Irene Gagerman does. Exactly, but now the ordinance is saying I can't. All right, all I'm saying is that I have spent over $11,000 planting trees and shrubs. And it shows. It really, really, truly does. And I just, I wish I had done a fence because it would have been much easier. You can't tell you how many times I've had to repair fences and, redo them because, I didn't plan correctly and I wanted to plant more stuff, I mean, we got to protect the woodlands at all costs as far as I'm concerned. And you can't make these illegal. You'll break my heart. I'll move. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
It's been said. I have a, can I ask,
Wait, one second.
can I ask Irene a question?
Leah. Leslie, right back. Leslie?
Thank you. I'm Leslie Reichenbach, 1390 Woodland Lane, Mayor Kaplan and trustees. I'm here to, sorry, it's not an easy one to spell. You want it?
Please.
Reichenbach. I'm here not to really comment on the ordinance as it's proposed. I'm here to really ask you to consider the larger picture, the role that deer play in the overall health of our woodlands. It's an issue that the village has avoided for a long time because it's so emotionally charged. I've been a village resident for 44 years, so I come to you with a perspective of an eyewitness to the changes that have occurred over 4 decades. When my family moved here in 1965, deer sightings were infrequent, and it was really a treat. Fences were pretty much non-existent. Trillium and oak saplings were plentiful, and now it's pretty much the opposite. I'm well aware that deer are not the only factor in the degradation of our woodlands, but they are an integral part of that. So it's not surprising that all these fences have been going up to keep deer out over the years. And as we know, it's not just to protect tulips and roses. We're talking about the native plants. All fences are generally unsightly, but right now it's a resident's most reliable means of defense. So I think it's almost short-sighted to act on a fence ordinance without first examining how the deer population and the local herds are affecting our efforts to preserve and restore the integrity of all our woodlands. It's almost like arguing about the size and shape of a Band-Aid without regard to the underlying wound. We have a large body of scientific research and resources and a lot of nearby entities who've been dealing with all this to guide us, and there's the recent study commissioned by the RPC. So I'm urging the trustees to consider the big picture, the larger issue here, and base your actions on fact rather than emotion. And that's it. Thank you.
My name's Mel Newman, and I live at 5 Julie Lane. M-A-S, N-E-W-M-A-N. I'd like to address, and I'd ask the trustees to look carefully at the non-conforming use provisions of this ordinance. The ordinance provides that people that put in fences pursuant to a permit have valid, legal, non-conforming use positions, and they can keep their fence as long as they want. And that's a very liberal approach. The ordinance also classifies those people who built fences without a permit as being subject to a modest amnesty of 3 years, after which they've got to conform. The problem with that provision, as many of you know, is that this village has really governed the use and permitting of fences in a very, very haphazard way. I know other people have concerns about